Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Quorum Podcast. This is where academic medicine meets remote, austere, and resource-limited areas. Welcome back to the program. This is Aebhric O'Kelly. This week, we are with Dr. Glenn Barnes, who is the program coordinator of the Aerospace and Extreme Environment Nursing at Texas A&M, and a former Green Beret and a doctorate level nurse. Professor Barnes, welcome to the program.
Welcome, my friend. Thank you so much for having me.
So tell us a bit about yourself and what's keeping you busy.
Well, little background. As you said, I was a former Green Beret, probably the shortest lived SF guy on record. Before that, I was a Army infantry guy, Army Nurse Corps, transferred over to the infantry branch. They went through SF, got caught in the pre 9/11 drawdown, and had 17 years in, nowhere to go. So I went to the Navy. And 9/11 happened, and the Navy put me to work working as the OIC of a Joint Task Force North mission to train federal law enforcement in emergency response. Did that, deployed with the U.S. Military Hospital in Arif Jan, Kuwait. Did that for a year, then did private military contracting for about 8 years.
So which came first? So you were a nurse first, and then you commissioned in the Army as an infantry guy?
Yeah, it was really weird. I was an infantry guy, enlisted, staff sergeant, and got out of active duty. Realized in the 80s there was no jobs for infantry guys. So I looked and saw that nursing was available and thought that that would be a really great choice for me. And got into nursing and just fell in love with it. And then they came to me and said, "Hey, Staff Sergeant, you're a nurse, right?" And I said, "Yeah." They said, "Do you want to be an officer?" I said, "Let me see the pay scale." Yes. And so I got commissioned as a nurse corps officer. And I was teaching down at Fort Sam, and I got approached by 20th Special Forces Group because they saw I was infantry and nursing, thought that cross trainability was really fantastic, and asked me if I wanted to join. And I said, "Well, hell yes." And what was I thinking? I was 35 at the time, so I ended up graduating the Q at 38. Um, yeah. I don't suggest that for anybody. That'll age you. And then found out right after school that I got caught up in the pre 9/11 drawdown, and all my paperwork was still with infantry branch, so they never transferred it to SF branch, and I got wound up in their numbers, which I guess is smart on their part, but bad for me. So there I was, went to the Navy, and they immediately put me to work doing some really good work with JTF 6.
So when you started as an Army nurse, it was an NCO and it wasn't straight to commissioned?
Oh, it was straight to commission. I got commissioned as a second lieutenant from staff sergeant, which really smoked the brain gears of the infantry guys when they asked me what my commissioning source was, and I told them it was a direct commission. Um, yeah, because technically at that point you weren't supposed to transfer from special branch to basic branch, but I got a waiver, and apparently if you get the right person to sign something, it can be done. And I think they had it out for me since they realized that they were just a stepping stone. I think now you can actually go through as a nurse officer. You can go through without having to bounce around, and because I had to do the infantry officer course and all that other nonsense.
Wow. So wait, you got commissioned as a nurse
Yes,
and they put you through infantry officer training?
yeah, they did a direct transfer from my nursing commission to an infantry commission.
So you commissioned as an infantry officer, not as a nurse.
Originally as a nurse, and then they transferred me as a direct transferred me over as a infantry officer.
I've never heard of that one.
Yeah,
Wow.
I know, right? So I'm probably the last direct commissioned infantry officer on the
Hmm.
books.
So is that what you wanted? You wanted to be an infantry officer and not a nurse?
I wanted to be SF. I mean, I've been wanting to be SF since John Wayne did the Green Berets. Um, I mean, I bought that hook, line, and sinker, and I just knew that that was the mission that was meant for me. To going out, you know, being that trainer, that diplomat, that soldier, all rolled into one, and having the multi skill sets, and just running with the absolute elite of your level of people. Um, you never do SF for yourself. You do it for the people around you.
I definitely see that. And of course, you don't get through selection in the Q course on your own by any means. There's no way I would have done that by my. I was literally carried up the hill some of the times with my big 18 Echo backpack by people around me. Yeah,
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, I went through as an officer, so going through that phase, I would get so caught up in the planning and stuff, I would forget to eat and drink. And the guy running as team sergeant was just, I mean, he literally shoved me to the ground and threw an MRE at me and said, "Sir, don't get up until you eat and drink."
nice.
And that's what a team sergeant's supposed to do, is look after your officers, because we get just flat out so tunnel focused sometimes that we don't even see what we're doing to ourselves.
They do run the ODA, don't they?
They really do. And they should, because they're the ones with the experience. And knowledge is great, but experience is gold.
We used to call you officers a life support for a hand receipt.
Yeah, yeah, that's literally it. I mean, I'm a logistics support officer, um, and glad hander and door opener. That's it.
Yeah, yeah. Sign this and then sit in the corner.
Yeah. And if you got a solid team, that's all you should do.
But you still get to kick through the door once in a while.
You know, they have to have some fun in there for you somewhere.
Yeah, got to keep you interested.
That's right.
There was a guy across the hall in 165 who was a West Pointer, and he did he got his into his team and did his 2 years. And of course, as a ODA officer, you get 2 years and you're in staff for the rest of your life.
Right.
He didn't want to do that. He actually terminated, and he did another 2 years as a captain, and then he had to get out. Like he I think he went. So that was in first group. So I think he went to 19th after that. But he loved being on an ODA so much, and
Yeah.
he just did not care about getting his general stars like everyone else in the officer corps is. So he
Yeah.
stayed 4 years on ODA 165. That was awesome. He's a good guy for a
Yeah.
ring knocker.
It's I've seen majors resign their commissions to take an NCO slot to stay on the teams.
Mm,
And that tells you about why the people are there. They're there for the camaraderie, the mission, the and actually that's just it. The type of missions you get to run and the people you get to run them with. That's why you stay there.
yeah, it's just a different reality of the army. Now, to be fair, I only spent 1 year in normal army. Back in the '90s, you had to be a corporal or a specialist before you could go to selection.
Right.
So I did a year in MI, which was horrific, and motivation to get
Oh
to
yeah.
get through selection. Yeah, big difference between the two.
Oh yeah. I was an 11 Charlie mortarman assigned to an armored cavalry unit. Yeah, there's motivation for you.
Oh, that 60 base plate is not fun.
No, no. And this was an 80, the 81 millimeter or
Oh, you
82.
had the
Yeah.
81. Did you have to jump that?
No, no, no. I didn't do jump school until after I made selection. So when when I showed up for airborne school, they asked me if I'd been, when was the last time I'd been to Benning, and I started thinking about it. I said, I've been to Fort Benning in 3 different decades, and they were like, "Excuse me?" I said, "Yeah, I did infantry basic in the '80s. I did infantry officer course in the '90s, and here it was 2000. I'm going through jump school."
Wait, you went through jump school at what you said, 38, is it?
I was 36, 37 when I went through jump
Oof,
school.
that's rough.
Oh yes. Oh yeah. I lived on Motrin, and thank God I was an officer, because at the end of the day, they just dismissed me so I could go cry in the shower, take my Motrin, and go to bed.
It's those T-10 Charlie landings that are just rough,
Oh
absolutely
yeah.
rough.
Oh yeah. It was just brutal. And then that my time in the sling landing trainer was fun, because they did apex drops on me just for kicks and giggles.
Mm. Yeah, that is not fun. Or the mighty Umgawa, which I think they've gone away from. You don't do the 250-meter tower anymore, do you?
I did.
You did, yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
heard
we
they
did.
removed that.
They
Yeah.
may have. That was a long, that's 20 some odd years ago. So we
Mm.
had one guy drift onto one of the building tops, um, and then he draped over the AC unit, so he just hung there on the side of the building.
Nice.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I was delighted to get to group and be in a water team. So half of my jumps on 166 were in the water, which is the best way to jump.
Oh God, I can only imagine. Never got to do that, but man, that just it's got to be better than the terra firma jumps.
Yeah, that those are well. We're both big guys. Yeah,
Yeah,
you definitely gravity is not kind.
yeah, yeah. Freaking my last jump in the Q course. You know those chutes are rated for 300 pounds. I was 200, and I had 150 pounds of gear. Now,
Yep,
I you start adding numbers up. It's like, wait a minute.
yep, yeah. Those are, even though you can drop your ruck on the line, it's a pain.
Yeah, it's still adding to speed and velocity.
So you went from there to the Navy. Did you still get to wear your long tab in the Navy?
Oh, I did. I think mostly because nobody thought to tell me I couldn't. Um, and luckily, what was it, the guy in charge of public health was a long tabber, and he had his. And since public health uses Navy uniforms, I used that as precedence, and nobody really thought to say any different. So,
Nice. Well, you
yeah,
earned it. You might as well wear it.
exactly. And so,
Yeah.
it's kind of fun when people don't know what to do with it. They just don't.
Yeah, it's like somebody with a Budweiser going into. So there's a couple of SF guys I've seen who are former SEALs, and they got the Budweiser patch, and no one knows what to do with it. Like, what the hell is that? What?
Yeah.
And yeah, they just wear it.
So yeah, they could put it anywhere they want because there's not anywhere to tell them where to.
Yeah, the Army Regs I don't think has a Budweiser tab as far as a where to put it.
Yeah, yeah. I don't think 670-1 covers that one.
So you did your military time, and all that time you weren't. So you were a qualified nurse, but you weren't doing nursing.
Yeah, pretty much. I did a little bit of nursing. And then when I deployed for the war, I was OIC of a clinic at Camp Buring, just south of the Iraqi border. And then they brought me back. They rotated me back to the main hospital at Camp John, where I did ICU. And I did that for about 5 months and found out about private military contracting and got contacted by a group and did 2 years counter narcotic work in Afghanistan and then another 5 or 6 doing diplomatic security work for Department of State.
So there you're working as an SF guy, not necessarily as a nurse.
Yeah, I'm also a paramedic, so they had me as a shooter medic
Hmm,
on the teams, and then I was part of the emergency response team for the U.S. consulate in Basra and in Erbil,
nice.
and then did that, and I got asked if I wanted to head up a veteran to BSN program in San Antonio that they were starting for Texas Tech. And after about 8 years of contracting, you realize I was getting long in the tooth to be carrying all those bullets. They're heavy.
Indeed.
And so I was like, yeah, so I stopped contracting and then I did 5 years bringing medics and corpsmen into Bachelor of Science of Nursing program.
Nice. How did that work? So they would get their 68 whiskey or their corpsman status and do a year with you or 2 years, or how did that work?
It was a real intense year. And what we'd do is we gave them actual college credit for their experience and the courses that they had to take down at Fort Sam. And they had to do almost like clepping. They had to test out and then they would get college credit for those. And then it's just a 1 year of taking like literally 18 to 21 credit hours a
Wow.
semester. Yeah, so you're doubling up. And you go through that for 1 year with hundreds of hours of clinicals, and then you sit for boards and you become a BSN RN.
And most of these guys are going right back into the service, are they?
I'd say about a quarter of them would go back into service. The other 3 quarters were, they were done with their military time and they were ready to take another career path.
Hmm,
And of course, with our medics and corpsmen not being able to utilize the skills that they learned in the military and civilian life, that leads to a lot of depression. And unfortunately, we both know where that leads to. So I saw this as not only helping my medics and corpsmen, but also saving military veteran lives.
indeed.
So programs like that were just one of the most noblest things that I could think of. So I did that for 5 years, and then I wanted to take my experiences and create coursework where I could train nurses to operate in austere environments. So I couldn't do it at Tech, but the University of Texas at Tyler agreed to bring me on to develop these courses. So I did a nursing and non-traditional environments course where I taught the nurses basic survival. Then we worked on the wilderness life support for medical professional certification. So they learned the austere medicine portion. Then we did disaster nursing and global health.
And what jobs were they getting with this program?
Some were doing missionary work. Some were moving on to be part of DMAT teams. Some were going and taking it and um, doing adventure or expeditionary medicine.
So they weren't going back to the wards; they're going Oconus outside of the states, or they were just doing.
It was a full mix. Some of them would go back to their wards, but they went with a different skill set and a different mindset because we could actually get them thinking literally outside the box. And, institutions are all about their boxes. We actually it was empowering for them to realize what they could do and what environments they could operate in.
So the program took BSN, bachelor's degree level nurses, and gave them a master's.
The program that I did for UT Tyler was actually integrated as an elective in their undergraduate. So
Oh,
it was just the elective that they used to do to complete their BSN.
wow, that's really flexible. Most BSN programs are very strict on what they're allowed nurses to do.
Yes, and that really is just a testament to Dr. Barbara Haas, who was the dean or is the dean up there. And because it's a smaller school, they have a lot more leeway to be innovative. You can't be innovative with constraints on you.
Hmm.
And so she was forward thinking. It was like, yes, this is, and then when I developed it, I found out that there was only two schools that taught wilderness medicine or austere medicine to nurses with certifications, and that was us and a school in Norway.
Huh.
It was just fabulous and the nurses, I think one of the biggest aspects that for these undergraduates was the level of confidence it gave them, not just in nursing, but in life as well, because you were teaching life skills.
So what were you teaching? This is a wilderness medicine course. Was it survival as well, or what was it?
Yeah, we would start off with the three basic tenets of building a shelter, building fire, and purifying water.
Hmm.
If you could do those three, you could pretty well make it.
Indeed.
And then we'd go into the wilderness life support, which used to be called AWLS.
Yeah. There's two of them now. There's Walls and there's AWLS, and there's probably a third, and WUMP, and yeah, there's loads of them.
Yeah, yeah, everybody's got their version of it. And it's like, I understand some of the change because it's not like you're learning to do chest tubes with bamboo or anything like that. You're just learning to use your normal skill sets in austere environments. So, but learning all that, let them revisit those skills outside of a classroom. So they got more experiential learning, which I think really paid off for them to build their confidence up. And then they came out with three certifications. They had the Wilderness Life Support for Medical Professional certification, the FEMA Community Emergency Response Team certification, and then the Essentials of Disaster Life Support certification.
That is a good one.
So coming out as with their BSN with all of those, you know, it was great.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. That is a different nurse than a normal BSN
It
graduate.
is. It is. And it's kind of like in a way it's kind of like looking at special ops compared to the regular military.
Hmm.
You have people that can think on their feet and they've proven that they can work as a team because they had to carry a casualty a half mile around a lake um, with a team of 5 or 6.
Huh.
And it was a real live person, so they had to stabilize them and then carry them a half mile. um,
Nice.
yeah, yeah, so you got to really work on team building.
Nice. And so you went from that to this new program. So
Yeah.
the
I
aerospace and extreme environment nursing, is this a NASA nurse, or what what are you doing with the Texas A&M?
Oh, Dude, I didn't think I'd ever leave Tyler. And A&M was like, oh, how about this? And I was like, yes, please. Because it is aerospace. It is looking at creating skills and a knowledge base that probably won't be implemented for another 5 years. And we're talking
Hmm.
about when we start advancing the space program, whether it's private or federal funded, that or government funded, that there will be people out there. And if you have a large group of people in these locations, you're going to need doctors and nurses because a doc can diagnose and identify, but when it comes down to providing the care, that's where nursing comes in. We're the
Indeed.
ones at the bedside providing that care. Paramedics, EMT, they are that first responder care. But when you start talking your prolonged care, that's nursing. That's nursing's domain. So we need to be a part of these expansions into this last frontier.
So you see space programs
Yes,
sending, and there's tons of docs have been in space now.
right.
Now it's time to have a doc and a nurse go on the next Mars mission.
Exactly. If you're going to have people, because before we go to Mars, we're going to have to go to the moon and build, platforms there. And that means you're going to have people there for long term. And that means you're going to need medical support, which means you're going to need nurses because you can't just send them home.
Not very quickly.
You know,
Yeah.
you're no, you're going to be there. You're going to be taking care of these people. And that is the nursing realm. And we have really nothing on that yet. So there's a lot of research that's got to be done. We have a lot of unanswered questions. We don't even know half of the questions that we should be asking yet.
I spend a lot of my time in research thinking about prolonged field care, and you can't get much more PFC than the concepts that you're having of sending these yolks up to space. And that is the ultimate PFC.
Exactly. It really is. And you have the PFC, but you also have the preventive medicine side because what do you do about sexual health? You're going to have people up there. And if you're talking multi generational missions, sexual health is actually, part of that.
It's global health.
Yeah. And so you've got a continuum. What's the effect of low gravity on the fetus, on infants, on toddlers trying to get spatial platform if they don't have a ground to learn to walk on?
I'm a avid Expanse fan. I don't know if you've watched that, but
I've
what,
watched a couple seasons.
yeah, one of the very interesting nursing concepts was in zero gravity. Is it actually possible for blood to clot? So how would you handle a catastrophic hemorrhage on microgravity?
Yeah, and that's the stuff we need to find out, and we need to figure out not just the hemostasis, but control of the floating blood bubbles.
Yeah, there's a huge risk, isn't there? Like
Yeah,
you have BSI. How do you do that with a floating blob of someone's blood?
yeah, and if it gets into the equipment, well, then you can have more problems in on Earth. It's real simple. It spurts out, it falls to the ground. We know where it's going. In space, it could end up in your life support system.
So there is a huge list of problem sets,
Yes.
and your program is focused on looking at these issues that are coming will be addressed in the coming space expansion. So what are some of these problem sets that you're doing research on?
Well, we're still in the beginning stages, so we're still developing our problem list, like the coagulopathy, the BSI containment. Um, you know, Going more over the long term effects of low gravity, isolation, the mental health issue of long term isolation, um, separation from family, that kind of stuff. And I mean, there's been a lot of work done with the military on that for deployments that's a good starting point, but we're going to have to extend that out because you're farther distance for longer times. And you're going to have interruptions in communication. So you're going to be isolated from command input, or even if you have connection, it's going to be delayed. So you're going to have to be able to set protocols in place.
So it's population health on Mars, or global health, but it's not on the globe anymore. So what are you going to call this?
And we're still working on names. We are that things are still developing that early in the game, and we have a very good handle on things. And we're just some of it we're playing close to the chest until it's published for obvious reasons. When you have the backing of A&M behind you, you've got, you have resources.
So, Professor, you are doing a doctoral program in nursing. Tell us tell us about your program. What are you creating? What is your goal, and what kind of students are you looking for?
Well, we're still working out. We're thinking of a few different options. There could be a certificate program. It could be um, a master's or doctoral, but we're also looking at extreme environments on Earth. So training that will for like we already have training for Arctic, we have training for desert, we have training for jungle, tropical,
Mm,
but half of them don't include nursing. They're very good at the medical aspect, but not the nursing aspect,
right.
because there's always the mindset that you'll just exfil them out. We are starting to get more into that nursing aspect with the development of the PFC and the PCC, because people are realizing that
Yep.
evacuation may not be practical. And you still have a level of care that should be done if you have that prolonged evacuation time. And again, that all is nursing domain. And so we're going to try to put all that under one umbrella where we could give training for nurses who want to go to these austere environments, whether it's a war torn area doing humanitarian aid or expeditionary medicine to outpost or global health missions to other parts of the world. This gives them the tools to not only survive but thrive so that they can provide for a patient population.
Indeed. Nursing is the blind spot, isn't it? So nurses they are the best at PFC, and they've always been the best at PFC. And me as a paramedic, docs and paramedics, we loathe trauma and we stabilize. Nurses do this as well, of course, but once all the excitement is over, it's you guys that are the best at maintaining that casualty for the next fortnight or two.
Yeah, and and you're absolutely right. They have to be viable before they get to us, or it's for naught. But once they do get to us, that peak action time is over with. Now you got to look at long-term sequelae of not only the event but the resuscitation efforts. So you got infection, coagulopathy, um, tissue loss. You have, do you have an anoxic brain injury? All of these long-term things that they can come in with, not to mention the fact that simple things like bed sores, if you don't keep them turned and they're immobile, they're going to have another problem with pressure ulcers.
A lot of good research showing 30 minutes and ulcers already start.
Exactly. Especially if you have bony prominence against hard
Mm,
surface. And there's not a whole lot of fluffy pillow mattresses in these austere locations.
indeed. Indeed.
Um, so, I mean, and these are the things that nursing is really good at because this is our wheelhouse. This is what we do. This is our bread and butter. Um, and simple things such as hygiene, and the psychological as well as the physiological effects of just keeping your patient clean. I mean, that was a mainstay for Florence Nightingale in the Crimean War. Just get them clean, and you can reduce morbidity and mortality.
Well, a lot of this is being relearned with the prolonged field care working group, and there are actually tomorrow I'm leaving to go to Poland to teach a PFC course, and it's starting to take hold. But man, you nurses have been doing this for well hundreds of years, haven't you?
Yeah, I mean, the first nurses were actually the Knights of Malta. So you're talking about early Crusade, where you had. military men, soldiers that were trained in providing care to ill and injured on the military way stations on the pilgrimage route, which were called hospitals, which is they have the same root as hospitality. Your first hospitals were military way stations, and your first caregivers were soldiers.
The Hospitaliers of Malta. I walk by their main base there in Mdina from time to time, and it's pretty amazing to look in that church and see the vast amounts of paintings and artifacts from that time frame.
Yeah, and to realize that this is where really where professional nursing began, and then when they were called to fight with the Templars, it was backfilled with the nuns, and they pretty much took it over, and did a fabulous job. I mean, I'm not slighting what they did, but they held on to it from then until, well, they still have it. Yeah, it's an amazing lineage that we have providing care to those in need.
So tell us, what kind of research are you thinking of starting with this new program?
Well, we need to look in. I don't want to duplicate work that's already been done, so we're still in the discovery phase. But we need to build on some of that from a nursing aspect, such as the coagulopathy issue. Um, do we even have to worry about bed sores? And if we do, how do we contain someone? Do we need straps? And do we need to strap them into a bed? If we do that, now our bed sores got to be across the top and not on the bottom. It's there's a lot of stuff, both physiological, psychological, and just environmental that we're going to have to work with because the moon does have some gravity. So that'll change from like a space station base to a moon base and then to a Mars base eventually. There's going to be a lot of research for development on how we suit up. It takes 10 minutes to get an astronaut out of a suit. So if there was a catastrophic issue, 10 minutes.
Yeah, they're dead because catastrophic
Yeah,
is, I don't know, up to 2 minutes,
yeah,
3 minutes to bleed out. Yeah.
right. So, um, we have room to do better.
So you're going to design a sick bay on the moon base.
I would love that opportunity. Whether that's me or somebody else, don't know, but man, would love to be part of that.
Well, it sounds very interesting, this program you're starting. If someone wanted to get more information about that, where could they look?
They could go to the College of Nursing for Texas A&M University, and we don't have our web page up yet, but they can go to the main page and make inquiries, and then just keep an eye out for the next couple of years because it'll be coming.
Glenn, my final question for you is this. What advice do you have for the new doc, the new nurse, the new paramedic who is just starting out on their career in austere medicine?
Twofold: learn from the locals and keep your options open.
Hmm.
The locals have been doing it for ages, or they wouldn't be there. And don't let modern mentality override possibility.
Can you expand on that one?
We are trained like if we're going to put in a chest tube, we need a pleurovac and we need wall suction. And if you don't have that, then the equation stops there. Well, what did they do before that? They did a 3 bottle system. Oh, we don't have glass jugs. We got, liter bottles.
Hmm.
So don't let your modern mindset be the end of your treatment modalities. Think of what is possible.
Knowing the science of what a proper plural vac does,
Yes,
and in having the skills to design something equal to that with local resource options.
absolutely. I mean, austere medicine and nursing is just MacGyvering the crap out of the physical science of medicine and nursing.
Evidence based improvised medicine.
Yeah, it has to be evidence based or it's worthless. It has to be obviously improvised because you can only, your supply can only handle so much. And so you can go in with intentional improvisation by knowing what's going to be available to you locally and then constructing what you need, or, do it at last minute because you have no choice. But it's always knowing what's out there and looking what other people have done before. especially in the soft community where these medics have just come up with some really wazoo stuff that worked. Those are the kind of case studies that we need to be reinvestigating and breaking down and looking at what are the possibilities.
That's good advice. Professor Glenn Barnes, thank you for being a guest on our podcast. I am exceedingly excited to see what you're doing with Texas A&M and the torch that you're holding to lighten a brand new concept of what nursing and medicine is going to be.
Well, thank you so much for talking with me and spreading the word and also working with me because you're going to be part of this too, my friend.
Indeed. I'm quite excited. Thanks, brother.
Thank you, sir. And I'll talk to you later.
This has been a presentation from the College of Remote and Offshore Medicine. If you would like to earn CPD credits for this podcast, you can join the Council of Members. Being a member of the college gives you free CPD credit, free access to our virtual field guide, and discounts on our e-learning courses. You can join the team on our college website at quorum.edu.mt.